Hey everyone, get ready because today we're going deep, really deep into something you might not expect.
Yeah, deeper than you might think when we say Real Housewives.
That's right, the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
But not for the, typical reasons.
Exactly.
We're going way beyond the drama and the diamonds.
Right.
To find some actually surprising sociological insights.
Yeah.
And we're going to be looking at an academic paper that analyzes the show.
That's right.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. Hold on, isn't this, isn't Real Housewives just fluffy entertainment?
Mm-hmm.
But this paper that we're going to be talking about, it argues that the show actually reflects and maybe even shapes some really big ideas about the American dream, about gender roles, and even about race.
And it all starts with the way the show portrays, a very particular, very specific, and maybe even distorted version of the American dream.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when you watch the show, you see these housewives and their husbands living in these incredible, mansions, driving luxury cars, driven in designer labels.
Yes.
And, the paper actually calls out some specific examples, like Lisa Vanderpump's husband. Owning all those restaurants.
Sure.
Kyle Richards' connection to the Hiltons.
Of course.
And even Yolanda Hadid.
Yes.
She had success as a model even before she married, a real estate mogul.
Right.
So it's like they're showing us the highlight reel.
It's of
what it means to,
it's the best of the best.
To make it in America.
That's right.
And that actually ties into this big idea the paper explores.
Yeah.
Which is something called meritocracy.
That's right.
Okay, meritocracy.
That
sounds kind of complicated.
It's a pretty simple idea.
Okay.
Basically, it's this belief that success is based only on how hard you work and your talent, regardless of your background.
Gotcha.
But the show might be giving us kind of a skewed view of this whole thing. Well, the show often glosses over all the advantages these women already have.
Okay.
The inherited wealth, the family connections, the fact that they often, marry into even more wealth.
Right.
So it's like they're starting, the race a mile ahead of everyone else. But the show makes it seem like they,
like they got there on their own.
They got there by themselves.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Through, hard work. And it's that kind of makes you wonder, is the show setting up these unrealistic expectations for viewers?
Totally.
This idea that if you just, hustle hard enough, you too can have a mansion in Beverly Hills and a diamond encrusted Birkin bag.
Exactly. And that actually takes us to another one of the key points that the paper makes, which is the way that the show promotes consumerism.
Consumerism. Okay, so you mean all the shopping sprees and the extravagant parties?
Yes, but it's even more than that. It's about how, just watching these women indulge in all this luxury.
Right.
It can actually make you want those things too, even if, they're way out of reach for you.
Totally. Yeah, I remember all those scenes with the Bentleys and the Mercedes.
Yeah.
And the constant name dropping of designers like, Chanel and Hermes.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And the paper argues that bombardment of luxury can actually fuel our desire for those things that for most of us will never be able to have.
Right.
It's almost like they're saying, hey, if you can't live it, at least you can watch it and want it.
Yeah, and I'll admit, even I get a little envious sometimes.
Of course.
Seeing those incredible wardrobes and those lavish vacations.
Yeah, it's easy to get sucked in.
Yeah, it's very easy to get sucked in. And I think that longing that it creates can, contribute to the sense of dissatisfaction for, people who aren't, living that Real Housewives lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we've got this potentially distorted version of the American dream playing out. But here's where things get even more interesting.
Okay.
The paper also argues that the show, even though it features these seemingly very powerful women, might actually be reinforcing some pretty old-fashioned ideas about gender roles.
Yeah, it's true. On the surface, it looks like these women are, calling the shots. They're running businesses, managing households.
Right.
They don't seem to be waiting around for their husband to tell them what to do.
Right. Yeah. It's not like those old sitcoms where the the wife's just,
Right.
home baking cookies all day.
Exactly.
Right.
But if you look closer, the paper is arguing that the show, it kind of subtly shifts the definition of being a housewife. Like, it's no longer about traditional, like, domestic duties. It's all about this idea of pampered leisure.
Oh, true.
And maintaining this flawless appearance, which
Yeah.
then becomes like the new
Like their job.
form of work for them.
But their job is to look amazing
Exactly.
and be, perfectly put together.
Yeah. And actually the paper uses this quote.
Yeah.
That really stuck with me.
Yeah.
It says that the housewives were saved by their wealthy husbands.
Ooh, yeah, I remember that quote.
It's a powerful one.
That is a powerful quote because it really it highlights this underlying message that a woman's ultimate success is still tied to her ability to attract and secure a financially powerful man.
That's right.
So even though they're running around in, Louboutins
Yeah.
and managing their busy social calendars, the show might still be implying that a woman's worth is at least partly determined by her husband's bank account.
Yeah, like it's almost like financial dependence is a good thing.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty interesting contradiction, don't you think?
It definitely is. It makes you think about the messages the show might be sending.
Totally.
Even if it's not doing it intentionally.
On purpose.
Yeah. And let's not forget, the emphasis on those expensive beauty standards.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Right.
All the Botox.
The glam squads, the designer wardrobes.
The paper actually says
Yeah.
that some of these housewives are spending over $20,000 a month.
Yeah, $20,000
on their beauty routine.
a month.
Yes.
That seems
That's a lot, even for Beverly
a
Hills.
little excessive, yeah.
Yeah.
And the paper is arguing that by showing this level of spending, it might be setting some really unattainable beauty standards for viewers.
Yeah, especially when you think about, most women can't even imagine spending that kind of money on beauty in a whole year.
In a year, right? Let alone a month.
Yeah.
So we've got this potential distortion of the American dream, and maybe some sneak messages about gender roles.
Yeah.
But the paper doesn't stop there.
It keeps going.
It also takes a look at this issue of race.
Yeah.
And representation on the show.
Absolutely. And this is where things get, even more complicated.
Yeah.
They point out that especially in the earlier seasons of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, there's a real lack of diversity.
Right.
The cast is overwhelmingly white.
Yeah.
Which sends, a very specific message about who has power and success in this world.
Right. It's like they're presenting this very narrow and exclusive vision
Yes.
of what it means to, be a part of the elite.
Absolutely. And the paper actually uses this term, colorblindness.
Okay, colorblindness.
Yeah.
What does that mean in this context?
So it's this idea that race is irrelevant, that everyone's treated equally.
Yeah.
But the paper is saying that the show might be promoting this kind of superficial version of colorblindness.
So it's like saying, we don't see color,
Right.
but then only showing
one type of person.
one very specific
One
thing.
specific.
Exactly. And that lack of representation, it can really perpetuate this idea that wealth and success are mainly for white people.
Right. And it further marginalizes people of color.
Absolutely.
But the show didn't completely ignore this issue, right?
Right.
Like they added some non-white housewives to the cast in later seasons.
That's right. The paper mentions that later on, there was an Asian American housewife and an African American housewife who joined the cast. Yeah. So that's definitely a step towards greater representation. But the question is, did it really change?
Yeah. Did it really change anything?
The show's dynamics.
Like, did their inclusion actually challenge the existing power structures? Or was it just like putting a Band-Aid on a much larger problem?
Right. That's a really good question.
It is.
And something that I think we need to explore further.
Yeah, definitely. So why don't we
take a quick break?
A quick break.
And come back to this.
Yeah, and come us and unpack this even more.
Sounds good.
All right, we'll be right back. So we're back, and we were just talking about how The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills might not be as straightforward as it seems when it comes to race and representation.
That's right. And actually, the paper, it brings up this really powerful quote
Okay.
from Garcelle Beauvais, the first black cast member on the show.
Oh yeah, I remember reading that. What did she say? She talked about how she felt this pressure to not be like the angry black woman,
Right.
which I think really highlights just how complicated representation can be.
Yeah, it's so true. Like, even if you're invited to the party,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't mean you automatically have a seat at the table.
Exactly. Even with more diversity, there's still this pressure to like conform
Yeah.
to certain stereotypes and expectations.
Right, and it makes you wonder if just adding more, diverse cast members is really enough
Right.
to actually address these deeper issues
Yeah.
of racial bias that might be like baked into the show's very premise.
Right. That's a great point.
And it makes me think about, instead of just passively like consuming
Right.
the drama and the glamour,
Mm-hmm.
maybe we should be asking ourselves, like, what are the underlying messages here?
Totally.
And how might those messages be like influencing my own views?
Yeah, that's key, right? Like becoming more aware
Yeah.
of how these shows might actually be like shaping how we see the world.
Absolutely. And speaking of perceptions, one thing that really stuck with me from the paper was how it connects the show's portrayal of beauty to these like really unattainable standards.
Oh yeah, totally. They talk about how housewives like obsession with
Mhm.
youth and physical perfection is basically fueled by this multi-billion-dollar beauty industry
Right.
that makes money off of women feeling insecure.
It's like this never-ending cycle, The show is promoting this idea that you need to look a certain way
Uh-huh.
to be successful and desirable, and then viewers feel pressured to buy into those beauty standards,
Yeah.
even if it means going into debt for, the perfect pout or those sculpted cheekbones.
And the paper, they say that, that pressure can be incredibly harmful. It can lead to, body image issues, eating disorders, and this constant feeling of like not being good enough.
Totally. And that's especially worrisome when you think about like how many young women
Yeah.
are just bombarded with these images
Constantly.
on social media and TV.
It's like they're always being told that you're not good enough as you are. You need to buy this product, get this procedure, look more like this person.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, like, are we really celebrating female empowerment
Right?
if we're constantly judging women based on their appearance?
That's a good question.
I mean, like, are these housewives supposed to be like role models?
Right. And the paper, it kind of explores that contradiction.
Like,
Like, are these women really in control of their stories, or are they, in a way, also kind of victims
right.
of these unrealistic beauty standards that they're promoting?
That's such a good point. And it's not just about, the individual housewives either. The paper also talks about how the show itself might be, complicit
Yeah.
in reinforcing these harmful beauty ideals.
Think about like how the show's filmed and edited.
Mm-hmm.
The camera's always, focusing on the housewives' bodies, their clothes, their jewelry, and let's be honest, their surgically enhanced features.
Yeah, it's like they're saying, like, look how perfect these women are.
Yeah.
This is what success looks like.
And even if we don't realize it,
Yeah.
those images, they can have this really powerful like subconscious effect on us.
Yeah, it's like we're being trained to associate beauty with wealth and status.
Exactly. And that's a dangerous.
And it's a dangerous equation, especially for people who don't have access to the same resources as these housewives.
Yeah, it can make you feel like you're not enough unless
Yeah.
you look a certain way and own certain things, which can be, really damaging to your self-esteem.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
and it's important to remember that those beauty standards
Yeah.
are often based on very, Eurocentric ideals,
Mm-hmm.
which further marginalizes women of color who might not, fit into those very narrow definitions of beauty.
Absolutely. It's like we've got this whole web of elitism and maybe sexism and racial bias
Yeah.
all tangled up in this show that's supposed to be like lighthearted entertainment.
I know, it's wild.
It's a really interesting, example of how even something as seemingly harmless as reality TV can reflect and maybe even contribute to some of the bigger societal issues
Yeah.
that we're all dealing with.
And it really makes you think, like, how much of my own understanding of, you know, the American dream or gender roles or even like race is shaped by what I see on shows like this.
Right, and that's a really important question for all of us to think about, especially, these days where we're just surrounded by media all the time.
Yeah. We are products of the media that we consume.
So are we like doomed to be passively influenced by everything we see on screen?
No, not necessarily. I think the key is awareness.
Okay.
Once we start to recognize these messages, these subtle messages, and we understand how they can, affect us, then we're in a much better position to really evaluate what we're watching and to resist those more harmful, influences.
So it's like developing this immunity to the toxic parts of the media.
Exactly. That awareness gives us the power to make better choices about what we're consuming.
Yeah.
And the messages that we let in.
And it's about taking control of our own narratives.
Absolutely.
And defining, success and beauty and happiness on our own terms, not based on what reality TV tells us.
I love that. And what's interesting is that the paper doesn't just, point out the problems.
It also offers some possible solutions.
Okay, like what?
Well, one thing they suggest is media literacy education.
Okay, so you mean like teaching people how to analyze the media they're consuming?
Exactly, like giving people the skills to break down those messages, to see the bias and to understand how media can be used to manipulate our emotions and our beliefs.
That makes a lot of sense, especially for younger viewers, right?
Right, because they might be more susceptible to those influences.
Yeah, definitely.
And they also suggest that we need more diverse voices, behind the scenes in media production.
So having more people of color, more women, more people from, marginalized communities actually making decisions about what stories are told.
Yes, exactly.
And how they're told.
Because if we want to see, more nuanced, more authentic representations of the world, then we need to make sure that the people who are creating that content reflect, the diversity of our society. Yeah.
And it's not enough to just have, diversity on screen.
Right.
We need it in the writers' rooms, in the, the directors' chairs, in the executive suites. That's how we start to change the narrative.
Yeah.
To move away from these one-dimensional portrayals and to create media that's more inclusive and representative of the world that we actually live in.
And that's a world where success and beauty and happiness come in all shapes and sizes and colors.
Absolutely. And where we celebrate individuality and we challenge those narrow, those often harmful standards.
Yeah.
That shows like the Real Housewives perpetuate.
And it's like we're saying, like, yes, entertainment is important, but it's also important to be mindful of the messages
that entertainment is sending.
Yeah.
And to make sure that those messages align with our values.
I love that it's a reminder that we all have a role to play in shaping the media landscape.
Absolutely. So the next time, you sit down to watch your favorite reality show, remember this deep dive and ask yourself those critical questions.
What are they saying?
Yeah, like what are the underlying messages?
The benefits from these messages.
Yeah.
How might they be affecting me? Exactly.
It's about turning passive viewing into this active and engaged experience.
Yes, because even in the most seemingly frivolous types of entertainment, there's always something deeper there, something that can teach us about ourselves and the world around us.
And sometimes those lessons can be the most unexpected and insightful ones.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, I think on that note,
we've reached the end of our deep dive into the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
Wow, that was a lot.
It was a lot, but in a good way, I never thought I'd be like analyzing a reality TV show.
Neither.
From a sociological perspective.
It just shows that you can find learning opportunities
Yeah,
in the most surprising places.
totally. So what's the final takeaway for our listeners?
I think the biggest takeaway is that we shouldn't underestimate the power of media.
Mm.
It can shape how we see things,
Mm.
it can influence what we believe, and it can even, impact how we behave.
So we need to be mindful consumers.
We do. We
Yeah.
need to be aware of the messages that we're taking in,
Yeah.
and make conscious choices about what we allow into our minds and our hearts.
And if a show starts to make you feel bad about yourself or the world around you,
Yeah.
maybe it's time to, switch the channel.
Or at least to watch it with a more critical eye.
Exactly. It's all about finding that balance
Yeah.
between, entertainment and awareness.
And remembering that we have the power to choose what we believe and how we define our own lives.
I love that. That's a great way to end this part of the conversation.
So after this deep dive into the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, do you think that shows like this are ultimately harmful?
Yeah.
Or harmless?
That's a really good question. And I honestly, I don't know if there's like a simple answer.
Yeah, I don't think it's a simple yes or no.
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, it's just entertainment, right?
Right.
Like no one's forcing anyone to watch these shows.
And they can be fun to watch.
Yeah.
There's something really, captivating about the drama, the fashion,
lifestyle.
the glimpses into these lavish lifestyles.
And honestly, sometimes we all need a little bit of escapism.
We do.
Right.
Absolutely.
But I think the key is to engage with these shows,
critically. Yeah.
To be aware of the potential,
Pitfalls.
the pitfalls,
Yeah.
and to resist buying into those
Yeah.
those toxic messages.
Absolutely.
So it's not about like condemning anyone
Right.
for enjoying the Real Housewives. It's about, being a more conscious and informed viewer.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that even something as seemingly lighthearted as reality TV can have a deeper impact
Yeah.
on what we think and what we believe.
Totally. And ultimately it's about taking responsibility for the media we choose to consume.
Because we have the power to choose what we watch.
Yeah.
What we believe and how we define our own lives.
I think that's a really powerful message.
It is.
And honestly, after this deep dive, I'm definitely going to be watching The Real Housewives with a new set of eyes.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
I think that's a great takeaway from this whole conversation.
Yeah.
It's not about, giving up the things that we enjoy.
Right.
It's about, approaching them
With awareness.
with a more critical
Yeah.
and thoughtful, perspective.
It's like we've been given this new lens
Mm-hmm.
through which to view not just reality TV, but the world around us.
And that lens can help us navigate, all the complexities
Yeah.
of media and culture in a more, informed and empowered way.
So well said. And on that note,
Yeah.
I think we've reached the end of our deep dive.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, it's been such a fascinating conversation.
It has.
And a huge thank you to our listeners for joining us on this journey of discovery. And remember, even in the most unexpected places, like the world of the Real Housewives,
You never know.
we can find valuable insights about ourselves and the society we live in.
That's right.
Well, happy diving, everyone.
Happy diving.
So we've really uncovered a lot in this deep dive, and it seems like the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills might be more than just escapist entertainment.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a reflection of, our culture's values and our anxieties, but it also, it has the potential to reinforce some pretty problematic ideas about success, about beauty, even about race.
It's like they're holding up this like funhouse mirror to society.
Right.
You see a distorted image, but it's still based on something real.
Exactly, and that's why it's so important to be aware of those distortions, to question what we're seeing.
Because if we don't, I mean, we might end up internalizing those distorted messages without even realizing it.
Totally.
And those messages can have, a real impact on on our self-esteem or relationships, even our understanding of the world.
Absolutely.
So after this deep dive into the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, do you think shows like this are ultimately harmful or harmless?
That's a really tough question.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a simple, yes or no.
I agree. It's definitely more nuanced than that.
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, it's entertainment.
Right, it's entertainment.
It's not like anyone's being, forced to watch these shows.
Yeah, and they can be fun. I mean,
They can be fun.
there's something captivating about the drama, the fashion, the glimpses into these lavish lifestyles.
Totally. And sometimes we all need a little escapism, right?
Absolutely.
But I think the key here is to engage with these shows critically, to be aware of the potential downsides,
The pitfalls.
the pitfalls, yeah, and to resist buying into those more harmful messages.
Yeah, so it's not about condemning anyone for enjoying the Real Housewives.
Right.
It's about being a more conscious, a more informed viewer.
It's about understanding that even something as seemingly lighthearted as reality TV can have, a deeper impact on us.
For sure.
On how we think and what we believe.
And ultimately, taking responsibility for the media that we choose to consume.
Absolutely, because we have the power, right?
Yeah.
We have the power to choose what we watch, what we believe,
And how we define our own lives.
and I think that's a really great place to wrap up this conversation.
Yeah, I think so too. And after this deep dive, I'm definitely going to be watching The Real Housewives with a new perspective, a new lens.
I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think that's a really valuable takeaway from all of this.
Yeah.
It's not about giving up the things that we enjoy. It's about coming to them with more awareness, with a more critical eye, a more thoughtful.
Yeah, with a more critical and thoughtful perspective.
Yes, exactly.
It's like we've been given this new lens through which to view
the whole world.
Yeah, not just reality TV, but the whole world around us.
Absolutely.
And that lens can help us to navigate all of the complexities of media and culture in a more informed and empowered way.
I love that.
Well, so well said. And I think on that note,
yeah,
we have reached the end of our deep dive.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a really fascinating conversation.
Of course, and a huge thank you to all of our listeners for joining us on this journey of discovery. And remember, even in the most unexpected places like the world of the Real Housewives,
you never know.
We can find valuable insights about ourselves and the society we live in.
Absolutely.
So happy diving, everyone.
Happy diving.
Everyone.